Well, the FAA has for decades been one of the most trusted institutions in government, and for good reason. Commercial air travel has been the safest in the world, in part because of the FAA's high standards. But under the Obama administration, that began to change radically without anybody paying attention. The Obama administration pressured the FAA to meet abstract diversity goals. Now, nobody bothered to explain why diversity is a relevant criterion for air traffic controllers. No one will explain it now. We called the FAA today, and we got silence when we asked that question, which is the most basic question. But it didn't matter. Starting in 2014, the FAA added a biographical questionnaire to the application process. Applicants with a lower aptitude in science got preference over applicants who'd scored excellent in science. Applicants who'd been unemployed for the previous 3 years got more points than licensed pilots got. In other words, the FAA actively searched for unqualified air traffic controllers. That is insane, and they knew it was insane when they did it, but they did it anyway. Today, we obtain new information. It is an internal email written by an executive at the firm that devised the FAA's biographical questionnaire. In that email, the executive admits that the test he devised has nothing to do with finding the best air traffic controllers. If you want good air traffic controllers, find people with experience. That was his advice. The FAA ignored this and used the biographical screen anyway. They didn't care about finding the best air traffic controllers. Compared to diversity, your safety meant nothing to them. We reached out to Greg Martin. He's the FAA's top spokesman. We wanted to know why the FAA would ever use totally irrelevant criteria, such as what people look like, in order to hire for a job as vital as air traffic control. We couldn't get an answer. We also asked the acting FAA administrator, Daniel Ewell, to come on the show and explain what exactly is going on and why he was too cowardly to appear. So was the previous administrator, Michael Huerta. He's the one who originally signed off on the policy. He's also a coward. But we're going to keep pushing until we get an answer. In the meantime, we're joined by former air traffic controller Michael Pearson. He's also a lawyer and is suing the FAA over all of this. Michael, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Tyler.
So I want to be certain I didn't misstate that. The biographical screen, which was devised under the Obama administration for the reasons I just explained, was created by a company that admitted that it was not the right way to find the most talented air traffic controllers, but the FAA kept it in anyway. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct. Actually, you didn't misstate it. You understated what occurred. To put this story in a nutshell, in late 2011, early 2012, members of the National Black Controllers Association had a meeting with the Rainbow Push Coalition, Jesse Jackson, and some high-level DOT and FAA officials. Michael Huerta was part of those meetings, by the way. And right after that meeting, the FAA put an immediate hold on hiring. They stopped hiring. They've used excuses like sequester, but that's not really what happened. Basically, they shut down the process. Even though the nation needed air traffic controllers, lots were retiring. The system was needing new trainees to go through the system because it takes a period of time to get through, but they did that consciously. Then the purge of the 2,600 or more qualified CTI students and graduate of programs across this country, including traditionally black colleges and disadvantaged colleges, were wiped off a list. And by the way, that list, the 2,600 folks, included a large percentage of female and minority applicants who would have been fantastic air traffic controllers.
And so these are people who were going to school for it, basically.
Going to school for it, had prior military experience in the area, were pilots. Some of these individuals were more qualified, certainly, than I was when I started. Then after that, they designed a test you're speaking about, a biographical assessment, biographical questionnaire. It's varied in terms, but this first one's called a biographical assessment that was made for a different purpose, as you stated. It wasn't supposed to be used the way it was, and actually the creator actually notified the FAA that. They used it anyway. In effect, that test punished people with any aviation knowledge, any air traffic control experience, any aviation experience, any science experience. And then the FAA came out and they actually had one individual, public relations out of the Southwest region, published that it was for diversity, and that was pulled back immediately, and then they stated it was for the best and brightest candidates.
This is so rotten and corrupt. I don't think anybody wants to live in a country where you can't trust air traffic control because they're so dogmatically ideological that they're intentionally seeking the worst candidates. It's insane. very quickly, what about all the unions and all the pilots groups, private commercial pilots groups? What about all the people in aviation world who knew this was going on? Why did nobody say anything about it?
Well, I think certain groups did try to say something, but quite frankly, there wasn't enough press coverage on it. And because of other political reasons, it didn't come to the forefront. The bigger question is, after those students were purged, then the FAA literally knew that there were individuals engaged in cheating to pass the new biographical assessment. So they wiped the students off the list. They allowed a group to then engage in intentional cheating, gave basically the subgroup, the National Black Coalition of Federal or Aviation Employees, the answers to that test. And that's as big of a story as anything else. What happened?
And unfortunately, we're out of time, but this will not be the last time we address this. This is a threat to the country. It's totally wrong, and it can only happen in secrecy, and we plan to pierce that. So thank you, Michael, for all your help with this, and I know that we'll talk to you again.
Thank you. It goes deep and broad. Thank you very much.
Thank you. San Francisco may be the most welcoming city in America if you happen to be an illegal immigrant with a record of violent felonies. And if you are, get there right away. We're not exaggerating, incidentally. How crazy is San Francisco's sanctuary policy? Well, so extreme that one of its original supporters, one of its architects, Angela Alioto, wants to change that policy, having seen it in action. Tomorrow, voters have the chance to nominate her for mayor. It'll be an interesting test, not just for Alioto, but for San Francisco and the state of California and this country, frankly. Angela Alioto joins us tonight. Angela, thanks a lot for coming on. I should stipulate for our viewers, you're a liberal Democrat. I don't think we agree on really anything, which I think gives you credibility on this subject. So you're against the sanctuary policy as it is now working. Why?
I'm against it because when I wrote it in the early 90s, we did not include violent felonies. And they amended it in 2013 and 2016 to include covering violent felonies. As a matter of fact, there's like a three-pronged test that a violent felon would have to go through in order for them to call the ICE. And so I said to the supervisor who did it, Supervisor Campos, I said, I'm not going to agree to that, because they did come to me as the original author and asked me, do I agree with adding violent felons? I said, of course I don't agree with adding violent felons. That's ridiculous. The concept is to protect families. The concept was never to protect violent felons. So when I did this ordinance a month ago, there was quite a bit of hysteria. All of the supervisors and the mayor of the city and the city attorney and the DA got on the iconic steps of San Francisco City Hall and called me all sorts of names and said this was outrageous, that I would be attacking the sanctuary law. I am not attacking the sanctuary law. I am attacking violent felons. They should not be protected under the sanctuary law or any other law in San Francisco. Because as you said, we become let's go to San Francisco, we'll be safe. And the other night on the news, it was very interesting, Tucker. The other night on the news, one of the news people mentioned that there hadn't been anybody in the county jails had been brought there in over a year and a half. And that's because the standard's too high.
Well, that's not. I mean, so just tell us, for those of us who don't live in San Francisco, what's the thinking behind wanting more violent felons who are illegal aliens in your city? How does that improve the life of the city of San Francisco?
Tucker, I have asked every single elected official who came out against me in the middle of this mayor's race, by the way, which was pretty dramatic. I've asked them, why do you want to protect violent felons? And the answer to that, if they answer at all, most of them don't answer. But the answer that some of them gave me was that I'm chipping away at the sanctuary law. I said, I'm not chipping away at the sanctuary law. I wrote the law originally. It was to protect families. I would know that I was chipping away at the law. And I have to tell you something, though. I'm running for mayor, as you know, and I meet hundreds of people every day. Yeah. And one of the first things the citizens of San Francisco say to me is, thank God you're doing something about dangerous felons. It's the first thing they say.
I don't think I'm in danger of swaying a single vote in the Democratic primaries in San Francisco when I say, A, God bless you for doing this, and B, I really hope you prevail. I mean, I think this is a test for your city. I really do. It's the most beautiful city in America.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. We got title and summary from the city attorney. Now, interesting thing about getting title and summary from the city attorney is that he was standing on the steps condemning me. So there's a little bit of a conflict of interest.
It's unbelievable. If you get this, I hope you'll come back on to celebrate. At least this part of your agenda. I agree. Angela Alioto,